It's time to take a look at the stories making headlines across Nigerian newspapers. And with me in the studio is lawyer and social development advocate Jide Ologun. Jide, it's nice to have you join me.
Good morning,
Great,
Mike.
great. And on Skype from Enugu is PR consultant and public affairs analyst Ambrose Igboki. Ambrose, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. And for Jide, good to see you again.
COVID-19 has kept all friends apart for now, so it's fine. I know you're on lockdown, so personal lockdown in Enugu, but I know you're having fun too. Okay,
yeah, we have to manage the situation.
Okay, let's start from the Blueprint newspaper now. Blueprint is where we're starting from. 774,000 jobs. Despite National Assembly opposition, federal government begins recruitment drive. That's the Blueprint. And from there, let's go to Daily Times. Army redeploys 37 generals and others. Okay, some people say it's a shake-up there and reorganizing the security structure. All right, that's Daily Times. News Direct is next now. Special Public Works Presidency, National Assembly face-off looms as Buhari backs Keyamo on 774,000 jobs recruitment. Senate keeps mum on this. Okay, that's the News Direct. I guess my guests will have interest in this lingering controversial issue now. Let's go to the Leadership. Leadership newspaper says lawyers, CSOs divided over special court for children. Save the Children seeks establishment of regional juvenile courts and virtual court proceedings, constitutional Supreme Court rules, and that put an end to a lot of issues recently raised to question or to test that whether rulings by virtual process is valid. Okay, from the Leadership newspaper, let's go to the National Economy. Federal government kicks against secret or corporate ownership, says Menace hides financial crimes and seeks global support for transparency. Okay, federal government kicks against secret corporate ownership. Okay, that's all right. From there, let's go to the Daily Trust, which is the last paper we're looking at now, and taking us back to our topic of discussion right now. 774,000 jobs. Buhari dares the National Assembly, backs Keyamo on recruitment, and scheme remains suspended. Lawmakers insist, and I am not aware of new directive. The DG of ND, National Directorate of Employment, is saying this, and lawyers, CSOs support president. Okay, that's what you see on the front page of the Daily Trust. Okay. Okay, let's go to the story on. You will like the story on Daily Times. I guess let's go to the story on the Daily Times, because this will certainly interest Nigerians. That it talks about the army deploys 37 generals and others. Jide, I'd like to start with you on this. I wonder how this changed things, because when generals are redeployed, sometimes a lot of people raise eyebrows to say there must have been something, or something is coming ahead where the army feels that something has to change or something. Talk to us about this.
If you look at the level of insecurity in the country, it's been of consistent concern, not just to Nigerians alone, but to the global community. And if you benchmark that with what insinuatedly happened recently, where about 356 soldiers were alleged to have voluntarily withdrawn their services, then you know we need to be seriously concerned. And as it appears now, it's as if,
although the army wrote, I think, on their Twitter handle that wasn't true from what we saw anyway.
Several things have been denied in the country, but we cannot deny the fact that the Chief of Army Staff came out to say he has met and done well in projecting the vision of the leader. And of course, we know that the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces is our President Muhammadu Buhari. And of course, if Buratai is claiming to have met his vision, I wonder that vision is, because the Nigerian Army was established in 1960. It's like the biggest arm of the armed forces to defend this nation and prevent us from this unnecessary, even though it's against territorial invasion. But right now, because of the incapacity of the police to handle the insurgency, the banditry and everything,
and
the,
some
the
internal
soldiers
challenges.
have to come in. And even the soldiers have been complaining. Recently, General Segun Adeniyi was redeployed for complaining that they don't have sufficient equipment to withstand these criminals.
Firepower.
Because for me, if you just keep destroying lives, and we are not talking about civilians alone, we are talking about our military personnel, and that portrays us in a very sad picture. If you look at what we have achieved in the past in terms of our, performance during the ECOMOG regime and everything, then you need to ask yourself, are we now a lame nation? But I'm not surprised, because I'm going back to the vision. I don't know what the vision of my president is, but the political promise is to solve the insecurity problem as part of several promises. But if the vision of my president is that soldiers be killed, policemen be killed, civilians be killed, economy be stampeded, then I think we are operating contrary to the dictates of good governance.
Okay, let me bring Ambrose in here. Ambrose, the deployment of generals, a lot of Nigerians have expectations. I wonder what that is going to change from your standpoint.
Well, first of all, this one is not an exception, but why people are raising eyebrow here is that it's so massive. I mean, 37 generals. You don't move generals anyhow. They are the top echelon of the Nigerian military. So for 37 generals to be moved causes some eyebrows to be raised. Having said that, I don't know the rationale behind moving generals when, in the first place, the chief of army staff is due for retirement so many months ago, and is not supposed to be there in terms of service. I mean, he's supposed to have been retired. So if the chief of army staff itself is supposed to have been retired, what is now the justification for moving generals about when the main thing that is supposed to be done has not been done? So that beggars the question in so many respects. The other thing is that there have been some schools of thought that said that there's a sort of demoralization among the rank of the military, because those who are supposed to have been promoted it's hanging because of some people who are supposed to retire have not been retired. I think these are the things that the chief of the commander-in-chief have to look into, so that we can calm down frayed nerves in the military. We can have a singular focus on fighting insurgency, and then so that we can concentrate more on a common enemy rather than having grumblings within the rank and file, which is not healthy at all. So I think we should refocus our vision to really enhancing the capacity of our military, forming cohesion of unity, and be able to have a singular focus to fight the common enemy, which are the insurgents and the terrorists that are trying to destabilize our country.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ambrose. Now, Ambrose said something that generals are not moved anyhow. You don't just move a general, but there has to be some, because the military intelligence they have there is like a different world altogether when they see things that others don't see. But if this rejuvenation is going on right now, the call that Nigerians are making that is loudest is that the service chiefs should have, like Ambrose have said, by now, because when you check their tenures and even you juxtapose that against the performance, they're doing the best they can, but Nigerians don't want to know the nitty-gritty of what it takes. Theirs is that budgets have been made. We want to, if I live in Gubil, for instance, I want to be able to go to bed and sleep with my eyes closed. That's what they know. That's what Nigerians want and all of that.
Brilliant submission from Ambrose, and that touches on the HR aspect and the PR aspect, that, okay, you need to build the morale of those there. But I'm looking at the business aspect. How has this fight against insurgency impacted the country? How many soldiers have we lost to it? Are we now so weak that we are almost overrun by bandits? These are salient questions for me. And you expect that those who are engaging these battles should be equipped. They are complaining that they are not equipped. Sometimes they don't get the allowances. Sometimes even the adversary on the other side are more equipped. The most recent is quite disheartening. I read that the police had to go and rescue the soldiers from these criminals. And the big question is that what vision is the Chief of Army Staff carrying out? I don't want to frighten Nigerians by rolling out the numbers of soldiers we have lost. You now talk about civilians. We are talking about high rate of death, the anxiety. You see, the denting of the image of this nation. And I am particularly worried because if under my president, whom I respect so much, a former military head of state, a retired general, Nigeria is suffering under this high level of insecurity. I am very worried.
All right. We pray something happens positively for Nigerians soon.
Let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the blueprint. 774,000 jobs. Despite NASA position, federal government begins recruitment drive. And we move to the front page of the Daily Times. Army redeploys 37 generals, others. And on the front page of the News Directs, Presidency, National Assembly face-off looms as Buhari backs Keyamo on 774,000 jobs recruitment. Senate keeps mum. And on the front page of the Leadership newspaper now, lawyers, the CSOs divided over special court for children. Save the Children seeks establishment of regional juvenile courts, virtual courts proceedings, constitutional Supreme Court rules. And on the front page of the National Economy, federal government kicks against secret corporate ownership, says menace hides financial crimes, seeks global support for transparency. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Trust, 774,000 jobs. Buhari dares National Assembly, backs Keyamo on recruitment. Scheme remains suspended. Lawmakers insist. I'm not aware of a new directive. The NDEDG, lawyers, CSOs support president. Gentlemen, I'm certain you would be interested in this topic, talking about the 774,000 jobs. You would recall that there was seemingly a face-off between the minister at the time that's talking about Festus Keyamo and the lawmakers when he was called upon. And he was saying that the president gave him this directive, and so they cannot ask him to stop now because the National Assembly was insisting on, being a part of the process. But now we see that the president seems to be backing Festus Keyamo, and the papers are saying this morning that there might be a face-off. What do you see happening?
As far as Festus Keyamo is concerned, is directly answerable to the president, which is under the executive arm. But if you look at sections 4, 5, and 6 of the Nigerian Constitution as amended, we have what we call the separations of power. And despite that, they are expected to work in synergy, talking about the executive, legislative, and the judiciary. But here we are now, muscles have been flexed. But having said that, I recall also that the present president of the Senate said in November 2019, when Professor Isesage approached him on the confirmation of Magu, that anything that comes from the president, they will attend to it. So maybe this is a test case for that. But we expect that the relationship between the arms of government must be fluent, and this unnecessary muscle flexing is not palatable, considering the fact that we are even talking of palliative jobs of 3 months,
yes,
20,000 naira per month. So it's not even a permanent job. But the reality now is that the level of unemployment in the country is staring us at the face, and that is why we are having this confrontation. In fact, according to NECA, we are likely to hit about 33.5% unemployment rate in year 2020, and with this COVID-19 impact. So we expect that somehow they should operate in a way that we express decorum.
All right, let's get Ambrose into the discussion now. Ambrose, from your point of view, what could be the interests of the National Assembly in these jobs?
Well, the National Assembly's interest is clear. That is politics, politicking, and talks of political patronage and ability to control everything that is in the political space, in socio-economic space as well. This is not the first time that the executive and legislature have been in loggerheads over similar matters. But this is, as we observed correctly, is just short term. Why would the National Assembly want to take up the responsibilities of the executive? The name executive means to execute the day-to-day affairs of the country. It's not the work of the legislature to do that. The legislature, though, considered to them have what we call the oversight function. What is the oversight function? The oversight function is to ensure that the executive carry out those things in transparent manner, in equitable manner, and in a manner that is devoid of fraud. So what they are supposed to have done is to ask the Minister for State, Professor Keyamo, to brief them, and after they ask him some grilling questions, and then maybe, for example, set up a bilateral committee from the minister's end and from the end to monitor the process and ensure that no side of the country is cheated out of it. But from the submissions of the minister, it seems they want to take up the process and turn it to the usual constituency projects that they have. They already have constituency projects appropriated for themselves. So why are they trying to take up this one as well? So instead of the National Assembly trying to hijack the process of the day-to-day running or unduly influence, given that there may be some concessions from time to time, from both sides. But from the feelers we are getting, since they want to take over the whole thing and make the minister redundant, and Festus Keyamo, being who he is, he's not a politician, of course, resisted it vehemently, and this is where we are today. And I think that the National Assembly should be able to concentrate more on appropriation, on lawmaking, and also on the oversight function. Oversight function does not mean taking over the functions of the executive.
All right, still staying with you, Ambrose, you would recall that I think sometime in June, the president warned public officers to not abuse their offices. I wonder what you see going to happen, seeing that he is giving the Minister for State a go-ahead, and the National Assembly is saying no way.
Well, I don't see any abuse of office here. But for me, I think Festus Keyamo should have been more circumspect in terms of his courage, in terms of his mien and disposition while in the chambers of the National Assembly. He didn't need to have blown hot air and the altercations the way he was. He would just have told them straight point in calm manner, and that this is what he wants to do, and keep it to himself and go straight ahead and do it. So those camera altercations were not palatable as well. But for Festus Keyamo, I think he's very right to insist that the process, he doesn't take orders from the National Assembly, and that is the truth. He takes orders from the person who appointed him minister and the executive of the nation, who is the president. Our public officers should as well conduct themselves in good manners. For example, the manners in which both Festus Keyamo and the Senate Committee on Employment that had meetings with him, I think it is not good for. There was no decorum in it, and at that highest level, we expect some level of decorum in our affairs. Having said that, I think the National Assembly should concentrate more on monitoring the process and making sure that the National Directors of Employment and the Ministers of Labor make sure that this thing is implemented according to the process. We have been hearing about some political interference, some names of the leaders who are supposed to implement that process in some states that are not too good. So I think that is what the National Assembly should be ensuring, that such names that don't sound well to the Nigerians are investigated and they are sure that they don't participate in the process. But for taking over the whole process is not right. And I think Mr. Keyamo is right.
Let's bring it back to the studio now, Jide. I wonder if it is possible to ensure, because Ambrose mentioned something about politicizing, which was why perhaps Festus Keyamo reacted in the manner. With the level of unemployment, looking at the figures you mentioned, is it possible that we ensure that the jobs get to the right people who need the jobs without politicizing it?
And the Chinese have a proverb that you cannot carve a rotten wood. From the present structure of this country, it is difficult to create jobs. And I think the effort of those driving the governance process should be towards this. How can the executive and the legislative arm now look at the electricity, for example, that will move us on the path of industrialization, where the private sector and the public sector can be empowered to create jobs? Because the 3 months we go, we've spoken about trader money. We have recently food were given to students who were not even in school. So these are issues. How do we manage our resources? Can they come together? Look at what we have done with our petroleum resources in the country. Can they come together, look at the cost of doing business in the country, the cost of importation, the cost of bureaucracy, and ensure that we have a revived economy? If not, this muscle flexing will continue, because the senators are there, 109 senators from different constituencies. We have a dependent economy. They have retinue of relations relying on them for jobs that are not available. They are kings and things like that. We have 360 House of Reps members. So you expect that we continue to juggle for these lean available outlets of engagement. And by and large, if we don't quickly engage national development, we'll be promoting criminality, because we are talking of a population of about 200 million Nigerians, where about 100 million are reportedly within the poverty bracket. So we must shift from flexing muscles at this point to coming together to see how we can revive the economy of this nation and project give us a platform of prosperity. If not, the rancor will continue, and then you begin to find that at the end of the day, it may even get worse for us, because the next question I want to ask is that even if the executive goes ahead to allocate these jobs, after 3 months, what happens? And billions would have gone into it. So can we prioritize and channel our resources in building sustainable platforms for economic empowerment as a nation?
Jide Olugun, thank you for your time on the program. Ambrose Igboke, thank you so much for your time on the program as well.
Thank you.